This podcast is brought to you from Grantwood AEA, an educational service agency that supports school districts in eastern Iowa with a focus on equity, excellence, and efficiency in education for all children.
Welcome to episode 60 of the EdTech Takeout, the podcast that serves up bite-sized technology tips for teachers. My name is Jonathan Wiley, and I'm joined by Mindy Carney. How are you feeling, Mindy?
I've been better, but I'm here. I'm podcasting from home today, trying not to cough into the microphone, things of that nature.
You're a trooper.
I am a diehard. I really believe in this work, so so I'm doing it. Let's do it.
Who else do we have with us today, Mindy?
So we have Marissa Dahl with us today, and she's going to be actually here with the whole podcast today, but we asked her on to talk and be, I don't know, can I say she is our main course today? Is that weird? I don't know.
It's always a bit weird.
Say that. It is a little bit weird. But Marissa, do you want to tell us what you do and what your position is?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Marissa Dahl, like Mindy said, and I am one of the instructional technology consultants at Heartland AEA. So Jonathan and Mindy and I all have similar jobs. We just serve different districts in Iowa.
Well, thanks for coming on. We are excited to have you today, especially me, which means I don't have to talk as much. You can definitely hop in and do all of the jabbing at Wiley that I normally do. How about that?
Okay.
So we're going to start with some news and follow-up. Wiley, you've got a list here.
Yeah, I always have a list.
Yes. I know.
So first one, if I get this wrong, you're going to have to correct me because I know you always do. And somebody on Twitter corrected me, one of our listeners. It's Tour Creator tours can now be created in Google Expeditions on iOS. It's Tour Creator, right? Not Tour Builder.
It's not Tour Builder. That's a different thing. I think Tour Builder probably is going to go away, is what I envision, and that Tour Creator kind of took over for Tour Builder. But so you can create it inside Google Expeditions, or you can create Tour Creator and pull it into Google Expeditions. You
can create in Tour Creator and then pull it into Expeditions, as long as you're signed in with the same Google account.
Oh, nice. Have you played with this at all?
I've tried it and can confirm that it works, but I haven't led an expedition of any size to test that out yet. But yeah, it should work.
This is exciting because with Google Expeditions, I think we always are like, how do we move beyond just the consumption of it? And this makes it much easier to have our students be the creators of it too, being able to pull it into Expeditions. That's awesome.
Marissa, do you have a lot of teachers over in the Des Moines area using Google Expeditions?
Yes, and we just got a set here at Heartland, and so we're excited to have that go into some more classrooms. But one of our consultants, Jeff Glade, he actually worked with a Spanish teacher. She couldn't find a Google Expedition that fit for her because I think they were planning on going on a trip to Spain. And so what they ended up doing is the locations that they were going, they actually ended up creating their own using Tour Creator. And so they were able to kind of map out their trip by creating their own.
Nice.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to put this one in as well. This was in to poke you, Mindy. I saw this blog post by Jake Miller, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I know what a big Google Drawings fan you are. Mm-hmm. And it's about how to insert drawings into docs that are assigned through Classroom. I thought it was kind of an interesting workflow where, you create like a doc and you share a copy of that with every student in Google Classroom. And what the idea he had was to insert a Google drawing in there, and so that students can double click on the drawing and then annotate and highlight it and do all that good stuff. Could you do that in Google Slides, Mindy?
Yeah.
Can you?
I'm going to just continue to say this. Whatever you can do in Google Drawings, you can do in Google Slides.
Okay.
All of those features just get pulled into Google Slides. Actually, it all started with what I've started calling the Sluggle.
You called it the what?
The Sluggle. Slides in Google. Sluggle.
Okay.
And I feel like the Sluggle is the Swiss Army knife, right, of Google. And drawings came after. So it's like Ugly Stepchild. It's fine.
Ugly Stepchild?
Yeah.
Wow. I can see why they called it Slides and not Sluggle.
Why? I like Sluggle.
I don't know. That sounds a bit weird.
Okay, well, whatever. But you could do the same stuff. Although I mean, I think it's fine. It's a great workflow. It's not. I mean, it's great. Right on.
All right.
Drawings. Okay, man.
So next one then on the list here. I'm curious as to what you guys think of this.
Okay.
This is something new that came out, the new Chromebook App Hub from Google. And it seems to be like a platform that Google's created to help teachers think about new ways to use Chromebook apps. And the developers have a part in this where they can help showcase some of the ideas and things that teachers are doing. I guess it's kind of an interesting idea of, how to connect the developers and the teachers together to help both sides get some benefits and the most out of their apps. Any thoughts?
Well, I think it's great to be transparent and I think you probably get more powerful tools, right? If you're got that all opened up and letting people in there, up in the business.
Yeah, I would agree. I think some of the ones that have on the front page, Book Creator and Screencastify are all great ones that a lot of our schools are using. So as long as it's not one of those things that they pay to get their app on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just another way to share some ideas and get the word out there. I mean, things like, Facebook groups get very busy sometimes, as you guys know, I'm sure, for these type of things. But this is maybe one place you can go just to have it all together in one place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we'll see where that goes and see what that turns out like. But we'll put a link to that in the show notes if anybody's interested in checking it out.
Yeah. Oh, this next one's a good one. Did you play with this at all?
Well, I did a little bit, but I thought I'd let you talk to it because you were also playing with it, aren't you?
I played with it a little bit, kind of like you did. So how did this conversation come up? What were we working on before?
This is a follow-up. Rachel Smith hit us up on Twitter, one of our listeners, and said, hey, I know you guys are always talking about Padlet and how disappointed you are that Padlet is now paid.
Our love-hate relationship with Padlet? Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and she said, have you thought about using numbers to do any of that kind of work?
Right.
And she hooked us up with a couple of people who had been experimenting with that. And we now have a blog post of a workflow that somebody used for that. So what did you think of that?
I thought it was interesting. So and this was from Rachel Smith, but actually it's Kurt Kleinen. Is that right?
Correct.
Is that how you would get? Yeah. So Kurt Kleinen's blog post about how he's been using numbers, but he deletes out the actual grid inside numbers. And I guess, you know what, I have to admit that I haven't been inside numbers like more than once in my life, maybe twice. And it allows you to add all of those things like Padlet does. That's the great thing about Padlet is all those built-in tools. And so you don't have to go here and record this and pull it in. It has all of those built-in tools, and numbers does too, apparently, which I didn't realize. So yeah, it's pretty powerful actually, if you think about it, and allows you to organize and concept map and all of those different things that, Padlet let you do, without all of running into a paywall like you do with Padlet.
Yeah. Maybe wonder if, you could do all this in Google Drawing as well, Mindy.
Yeah. The only thing is you can't add video straight into Google Drawing. Can you? I mean, Google Slides you can.
I have absolutely no idea.
With Google Drawings? I don't know.
I would have to try that and see.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it was the nice thing. What I always think is neat about this kind of thing is I think we get caught up so much in what's the new tool, what's the new tech. But what we really should be looking at are the tools that we already have and using them in different ways and trying to think outside the box of how to use them. And I think that's what's really neat about this idea is that someone took a tool that they were very familiar with and found a different way to use it. And I always get really excited about that.
Yeah, you've talked about that before. That's that kind of that Matt Miller philosophy, isn't it? Of making the most of what you already have.
Matt Miller? What about me? Why is it Matt Miller's philosophy?
I thought you said you read about it in a Matt Miller blog post one time.
I did? Oh, crud. Okay, fine. It's Matt Miller's idea.
Okay.
We'll let him have it.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yes, absolutely.
I was looking to see if you could add videos into Google Draw, and it doesn't look like it.
Oh, boom.
And numbers is one of those things. I think it comes on iPads now. Maybe it doesn't come with iPads, but it's one of those like default Apple apps that
right.
everybody has access to and can use, and you can share it and make it available on the web and share links with other people. So it's an interesting idea for sure.
You said this, and I have to ask the question is, so you said you can still use numbers online, but do you have to have an Apple ID to do that?
You do, yep.
Okay. So that would be a little bit of a bump in the road.
Yeah, and actually the online version doesn't have the same number of features. Like it doesn't let you add video online and things like that. So, but interesting idea for sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Last one on the list here then, Mindy. I know we talked about my prowess with brainstorming in previous episodes. I came across a couple of articles. I was just browsing around the web here, and one here from the Harvard Business Review saying sometimes it's better to brainstorm alone.
Right.
And the other one saying the best ideas come out when you're alone and not in group meetings.
Sure.
And just some recent research that was out there on maybe suggesting like a hybrid approach to brainstorming, where you brainstorm by yourself first and then you come back and discuss those ideas together as a group and then pick some good ideas from there. So I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, I think a lot of my best ideas I think come when I am alone, because one of the things I would say about brainstorming is there's a pressure to have like a good idea in front of other people, where if you're brainstorming by yourself, it's like, I'm just going to, kind of think about this. And a lot of my ideas either, actually come while I'm driving in my car. So, I kind of get that. But I do think it's important to bring it back to the group, right? And that the group still has to accept those ideas. Is that where this is going? Is that it was a pushback of me saying, like, giving you a hard time about your brainstorming capabilities?
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
But it's still good to honor those people's ideas, right? And not shoot them down immediately.
This is probably too much information, but I think my best ideas come in the shower.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that.
Awkward pause there.
Yes, yep.
I'll put some crickets in later or something.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that too. I think you have really, really good ideas when you on your own, but I think they only get better when you share it, because then you have your team to think through, like, how can I even make that better? Oftentimes when you're brainstorming as a group, one person goes off this, goes down this road, and then we all feel like we have to go down that road, and we might, not even acknowledge some of the really great ideas that somebody else had that wasn't even close to that road. So I like the idea of just brainstorming on your own and then getting into groups and everyone sharing their ideas and then choosing bits and pieces that are the best of all the ideas to come up with the best idea.
Yeah, I didn't thought about that as like a snowballing brainstorm, right? Where one person starts with their idea and then you continue to build off of that idea instead of bringing in fresh, clean ideas. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Okay, up next is our main course today. As we had mentioned, Marissa is here with us today and going to be sharing some of her ideas around learning that you've been doing, right? Around screen time with students and social media and the effects that those things have on our students, right?
Yeah, I have. And it's kind of evolved a little bit. I kind of started last March around spring break, actually, kind of following this guy called Colin Cartnich. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is off his rocker. I did not believe in what he was saying at all because, our jobs are to share how technology can be used in our classroom. And so by me being uncomfortable for a while and not choosing to unfollow him, I kind of have a better understanding of what social media and screen time, how it's affecting our kids. So when you think about it, most of us we're all out of high school and we're all at college, and we do think about some of the dumbest things that we ever did in high school, and to think about how those could be. We could search for Marissa Dahl and see, all of a sudden I see a picture of something I did in high school, and then I'd be completely embarrassed about it and think about the our jobs and our friends and that we have now. Would that be something that we'd still want to show up on social media? And so are we are our teens who have access to social media, are they ready to take on that responsibility of something that might show up when they're 20, 30, 40 years old?
Yeah. I know that, and I may have mentioned this before in the podcast, I'm not sure, but back, when my kids were younger than they are now, although they're still young, I happened to come through some pictures from college and was like, oh, wow, I'm going to just go ahead and burn these because I don't really want these to ever be discovered. And it wasn't like they were terrible, but they, I didn't want my kids seeing them, right? Because how could I have discussions with them about making good choices and whatever when I obviously didn't make all the best choices in my, past. And it really did then make me think, wow, it's so easy for me to destroy evidence of the dumb things I did, which is what being a kid is, right? Like, I want my kids to make dumb mistakes and to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But wow, that was super fun. But I don't want it to chase them down for the rest of their lives either. And I think we have it easy right now. But yeah, moving forward, it definitely places a lot more responsibility on our youngest kids to make those good decisions for later on in life. And I'm not sure they can do it.
Yeah. And I mean, for us, I think we're all in the same boat. Those pictures are in totes, in our basements or at our parents' houses. Right. Those are things that are plastered for everyone to see where we can quickly, just disperse of those.
Yeah, right.
So I guess my why is after learning a little bit more about the effects, I kind of started thinking about my own social media use and what do I want to see and how do I feel on social media. I did a little bit of research on just through even Common Sense Media, that digital wellness. And I started kind of doing that self-regulation of like when I'm on Instagram, when I'm on Facebook, when I'm on Twitter, how does it make me feel? Am I angry? Am I frustrated? Am I lonely? Does it make me happy, excited? And so now I'm a little bit more, if I acknowledge something that made me upset or something that didn't resonate with me, I can quickly unfollow that person. And I remember saying that in a presentation, and I had a college student come up to me. And she had said that someone had told her that she could unfollow people. And she said she had never felt so empowered before. Because when you want to have as many followers as you can, she's like, how do I tell my high school sister that unfollow people? And so I think we need to make sure that we want to make sure that our kids understand that it's not about how many followers are, and that there's somebody out there that's not making you feel good about yourself and not helping your self-esteem, that it's okay to follow. Or even I've snooze in Facebook, you can snooze them for 30 days. Yeah, right. And so just to see how that changes your self-regulation and just learning how to self-regulate yourself. So, and I'm not here to preach. We all have social media. We have kids, and so I want everyone to know that I just like to have conversations and how to lead conversations, facilitate conversations, and know that we all know what's best for our kids. And just so you know a little bit about the research out there, and then maybe a little more self-regulation about it.
Yeah, the tough part is in all this, I think, for kids today is that peer pressure element and the fact that all their kids are on social media and some of their kids are doing this or that and the next thing. And yeah, it does become that competition for likes and for follows and all the rest. And I don't know, do you have any ideas or suggestions on how parents or teachers can talk to kids about things like that and how that can be solved?
Yeah, there's a couple resources out there. One of the ones I found lately is Wait Till 8th. And that's it's a pledge. And they say that, you get flip phones until 8th grade. Some people would still say high school, but, what it is it gives you resources to help you have the conversations that, everyone have a smartphone. So I have to give my kid a smartphone, but there's conversations you can have around, what do we need a cell phone for? And is it, does a flip phone work? And there actually are kids who are taking the pledge on their own and asking for flip phones, and they're actually selling their iPhones, because they realize that it's affecting their grades and affecting their anxiety and social emotional health. So it's kind of neat when I see pictures of kids like, look at, I got a flip phone. But there also are things out there like the Family Online Safety Institute. I think Gina is actually the one that I shared that, and I found that. And then also creating a family media guide, coming up with a contract. I was in a classroom just last fall, and it was a 4th grade classroom. And they had asked the teacher had asked the students, how many of you have a smartphone? And then how do you have access to Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and then text messaging? And then I was shocked to see that a ton of them had Snapchat and Instagram in 4th grade. But then the next thing that was kind of an eye-opener to me is, do you have rules? And over 50% of them did not have any rules. I think actually I take that back. I think 4 of them out of the 10 that had a smartphone did not have rules. And so thinking through like how do we set guidelines at home? So do we have screen-free zones? I know parents, and I know there's a lot of pledges out there that you say, you know, dinner for phone-free, screen-free dinner, or things like that, or just the kitchen table, there's no, you know, phones. But then also, you know, someone said, well, what if we're talking, having a really good discussion and a question comes up and we want to, you know, grab our phone to look it up? Then, yeah, I mean, I think we also live in a world that is accessible to us to find a quick answer. And so, and I think I think we have to be flexible as well. So I think it is important to have a contract, but then also be flexible. And then also things like, you know, making sure that we're modeling for our kids too. I've seen a lot of stories of kids saying, you know, my mom only does things because she wants to post it on Facebook, or she wants to post it on Twitter. And then it's like our kids are coming up with that, you know, are getting their self-esteem and they're getting their self-worth through social media. And so we want to make sure that they're getting their self-worth from us, not just social media.
Yeah, I think that's a really tough one. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it wasn't about parenting, but he was talking about, you know, his own use of his devices at home, and he has 2 young kids. He has 5 and 7-year-old, and I think his 5-year-old said, he wanted him to come in and just be in the room while he built some Lego or something. And he said to his dad, he goes, "You can bring your phone if you want." And his dad was like, oh, man. He said that hit him like a dagger in the heart sort of thing. And he said after that point, he decided, you know, we have to make some changes. And like one of the things they do is like he has his phones him and his wife have phones on Do Not Disturb, like between 5:30 and 7:30 when the kids go to bed or something like that. And, you know, it's just a small thing, but for 2 hours, they're not hearing notifications, they're not getting notifications that makes them want to go and pick up their phones. But at the same time, like you said, at the dinner table, if they're having that good conversation, they can still pick up their phone and like do a search for something, but they just won't see any notifications on there. So it's about getting that balance, I think, in there for sure.
It is. And we can link to the show notes too. Colin Cardish did a TEDx talk. He lives in Utah, and so he did it there. And that was one of his like eye-opening thing is when his daughter came home and talked about how he was always on his phone, and he said his daughter didn't realize that he was on his phone to make money. You know, it was a part of his job, and so he had kind of made a pledge to say, you know, or a pact that he would not do that. And so that TED Talk is something that was really informational for me. And he had kind of started with, he had teachers. So going back, I know we talked a little bit about parents, even for teachers. So what he had done is he had gone into a classroom and asked, what is one thing my parents don't know about social media? And the responses that he got, you know, that's kind of, so back last March, that's kind of what made me think, okay, you know, maybe I need to look into this a little more, because it was just, it's very eye-opening for me, I guess, to have 4th grader, I think it was 4th or 5th graders, sharing some of the things that they're experiencing on social media that none of us have any sort of experience with, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what's tricky is because a lot of times when we parent or even as we teach, we look back on our own experiences and we don't have these experiences. So we can't say like, here's my advice or this is how I got through this, which is how we get, you know, help our kids through a lot of, you know, friend issues that they have. But we're totally on uncharted waters right now as far as offering support for our kids. So one of the things I do try, I just recently lost my phone for 2 days. It was awesome. It was the best thing ever. I don't really love all the notifications I get all the time. But one of the things I try and do with my kids is I try not to be on social media a lot, but when I am, I'm playing Words with Friends. And I always tell my kids, like, hey, I'm doing this because it gives my brain an exercise. I'm working with my brain right now. The other thing is if I'm looking up an answer to something that we were talking about, I'll say to them, hey, right now, the reason I'm on my phone is because I'm looking up, how far whales travel, because that's a question that we have right now. But I try and narrate why I'm using my phone when I'm using my phone so that they understand, like, I'm not just picking it up because I'm not interested in what you're doing right now or what you're talking about, but because what you're saying makes me think of, a question that you have or something that I'm thinking about. That's the best I can do, right? I don't know.
I think those are the ways that, like, when we kind of do, those are modeling, those are things that, like, we're doing those think alouds for our kids. And it's not that you have to feel like you have to justify why you're on your phone, but it's like, oh, so my kid, instead of like, oh, we're sitting in the waiting room and I have nothing to do and I'm bored, I'm picking up my phone and said, no, like, I have a question, or I need a brain break, or, like, you're giving yourself, you have that self-regulation. You're modeling why you're on your phone, and it's not because, your kids are boring you or something.
Well, I mean, Marissa, sometimes they are, let's be serious.
Well, and sometimes we all need a break.
Sometimes I'm trying to escape my children.
Exactly.
God bless them, but yes.
And one of the things that, I linked on our show notes too is the 48-hour screen time experiment ABC News just did. They had a couple families to get rid of or take away all screens for 48 hours. And some of the things that the kids even said that they were doing. And when one of the parents said, I mean, there was all different ages, and what the parents said, is that they had, game time, and they had, like, the conversations that they were having. And then one family had that's the thing. One family had no restrictions. So some of the kids were on the computer or on their, screens for, all hours of the night, while the other one, 48 hours, had strict restrictions of none. And then they kind of compared, how the experiment went. So that was a very interesting, news clip there, if you're interested in checking that out.
Marissa, have you ever had teachers come to you and ask about like using cell phones in the classroom, or whether cell phones should be banned in the classroom, or how to manage cell phones in the classroom? Have you come across anything like that, or what kind of things do you say to your teachers about that?
Yeah, I have. I think that it's a huge classroom management task. And I think anytime that we enter devices into our classrooms, it is classroom management. And so a couple of things that I say is, if you have access to a school-issued devices, such as Chromebooks or iPads or things like that, I would rather them use those devices in the classrooms, because we know that those are filtered, and they are able to, we're able to see the history and things like that. There's, we have things in place to keep kids safe. But then know that that's not going to work for all classrooms. And so I did see one of the classrooms, and some of our classrooms are actually starting to go this route, is doing kind of a shoe holder, a pocket shoe holder. Back in the day, you usually see calculators in them. But I have seen some teachers now having kids, like, check their phones in and putting it in there. And that way, it's out of sight, out of mind. Because one of the things, like, if you're sitting in class, and if we think back to our, our 7th grade self or 8th grade self, and all of a sudden, one person gets a text message and they're sitting there and they're reading it, they're laughing, they're smiling, then, the rest of the class are like, oh my gosh, what are they looking at? What are they doing? Am I missing out on that? It's like fear of missing out. And so, thinking about the distractions that those, can bring into our classroom. I saw a teacher, just last week or 2 weeks ago. She had allowed the kids all to have their phones and all to have their notifications on. And they had to then tally how many notifications they got from any social media or any text messages or anything. And oh my gosh, it was just her 4th period. And so I was shocked to see how much instruction time was lost. And she acknowledged that this is not something she does every day. Like, she usually has the kids turn it on silent. But as many times as the kids were receiving notifications just during her 4th hour, could really, how can teachers, how are teachers supposed to, that's what they're competing against, is those notifications. And so how can we, monitor, or how can we kind of keep those away from, or keep those notifications to a minimum? And honestly, isn't everyone in school? When most of us are in school, I was very surprised to see that there's still that many notifications going on. But
well, and I think even as adults, we deal with that, right? Like we go out to dinner with our friends and everybody's got their phone out, and pretty soon you're like, geez, everybody's looking at their phone, but none of us are talking to one another.
Yeah.
So frustrating, right? And even as adults, we're having a hard time self-regulating like that. It's got to be even worse for our kids. I did see something, and I can't remember because it was super funny how the teacher put it, but she would have her kids could keep their phones at their desks, so if they had to flip them over. And she had something that she said, and all of the kids would flip their phones over so that they wouldn't see the notifications they were getting. But then she'd also have times in her classroom where the kids could flip their phones back over and, check their notifications quick if they needed to, or use their phones. But, even something simple as that where, and the observer, whoever it was, and I wish I could remember, but, said it was really something because all she said was this one trigger word, and all of the kids just picked up their phones and flipped them over and knew that they were going to have a classroom discussion and that, phones need to be put away. But, I think sometimes too, when we ask our kids to put our phones completely away, then they try and find ways around that. Mm-hmm. So I think that was kind of an interesting way to not feel like we were like locking down the phones, that they were still accessible to kids, because otherwise they're going to find a way to work around you, because that's what kids do, right? That's the fun of it, is trying to find a way around the rules and regulations of things. But just having some definite classroom, rules or regulations that isn't completely locked down, but still is a community or a culture sort of thing. Like, hey, we're all together now. Put your phones, flip your phones over or whatever. So,
yeah. And I think modeling that and having those routines in your classroom, hopefully then, if they're home and they're studying, and they're home or they're doing something, then they're like, oh, this is a task that's going to require my full attention. I need to put my phone away, or I need to, put it on Do Not Disturb. And that way, modeling that in the classroom and practicing that would hopefully then, they would do it at home too. The other thing I thought about is those, we talked about the screen-free dinner table, but also places in our buildings to have screen-free. There are like little nooks, or like one lunch table, or one little table at the library or something, just so that our kids know that because I know for me, I have someone I used to work with that types really, really loud. And so if I'm sitting next to...
Me too.
I
do too. Uh-huh.
So sometimes if I'm sitting next to that person, I'm completely distracted, and I can't, be to my best ability because I'm completely distracted by their loud typing. And so I think and even, they got a notification, or sometimes, someone takes a phone call. It's like, no, like sometimes I want to disconnect. And so are there places in our schools that our kids can can disconnect?
Mm-hmm. Because either other people's notifications are distracting too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that idea of like a haven for digital devices is interesting. I remember like last time I went to the UK, on some of the trains that they have, like some of the carriages they call them like phone-free zones, where you can sit in this carriage if you want, but you're not...
Like a car? Is that what we're talking about? Are you calling it a carriage? Like a train car?
A coach? I don't know. Those...
I feel like we're on Cinderella all of a sudden.
Okay, we're not on Cinderella.
No. A train car, though, is what you're saying.
Right.
Is that what you guys call it? Is a carriage?
A carriage, correct.
A carriage. Yes. Okay, I'm with you.
No horses or pumpkins attached.
For the rest of us. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they would have a train car that was a phone-free zone, and they had these stickers up everywhere that said no phones. And I don't know how well they enforced that, but it's one of those visual things that you walk in, you're like, oh, okay, well, if you were intending on doing some work or using your phone, then you go sit somewhere else, and the people that want to have that distraction-free environment can have that. And maybe there's places we can do that around our schools too, just to give kids a digital break in these one-to-one environments that we have today.
Absolutely. And there's also things that on our phones we can set up too. We can link to some down below, but I have Android phone, and so I use something called Quality Time. And that's something that will tell me, like, you've spent your allotted time, or because I can set my how much time I want to spend. And so I'm trying to, continuously get that, decrease that time. And so it will tell me, you've spent so much time online or on this certain app, it's time to take a break. Research would say blah, blah. And so it kind of be blurbs. And there's times where, especially if the kids are in bed and I, just watching my mindless TV, I'm like, yep, I know I'm spending too much time. But that's also, I understand that about myself. Whereas there's also things where it will say, because I know in iOS too, one of the latest upgrade or updates, will allow you to, put screen or limits on your screen use, as well as let you know how much time you're using in each app. There's also things called, what was the other one? Palm. So Palm came out with a phone that's literally as big as your palm, and it's only, do you know what I'm talking about, Jonathan?
Yes, I do.
And so it's literally as big as like your palm, and it only gives you access to the things that you absolutely need. I just kind of dabbled in it a little bit. There's no way that I would be able to go that route. But for some people that works for them.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a really interesting digital citizenship type conversation if you had the kids, with iPhones look at screen time, or with Android look at the digital wellness stuff they have there, and just think about and compare and, take a note, like how many notifications do you get each day? How much time are you spending on this app or that app? And then pull all that data in and then have a conversation around that. Is that good? Is that bad? Is that something we should think about or not, and why?
Yeah, and actually, and there are other things on your phone that you can do, like turning off notifications for certain apps. Like I turn my work Gmail off, and so I don't get work notifications on my phone. I did that one time heading on vacation. I just never turned it back on. And so, because understanding that you can take control of your phone, and you can take control of your device by setting those settings up, setting up that, do not disturb from a certain times at night. Not letting, turn it, like even on Instagram, if someone likes my comment, just turn it off. There are things that's, because there are people, developers and psychologists that are putting these or building these apps that want you to spend as much time as you can on their devices. And so thinking about how to take control of your phone instead of letting your phone control you. People say like a notification is kind of like, pulling the handle on a slot machine. You just never know what you're going to get. And so when you're at a slot machine, you want to keep pulling the thing and pulling the thing. And so that's kind of what the phone is. Like every time you unlock it and every time you get a notification, it's like, oh, what am I going to get? So it's that immediate, rush of endorphins. And sometimes our brains are constantly at that high level of endorphins, and we don't always know how to, if you take a iPad away from a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, they might go crazy. My kids have. And so it's because they're at that high, they're getting that device taken away that's giving them that high. And so some people would say that sometimes our devices are like a drug.
Yeah, and I think that's like great advice for teachers as well, because, people who have not been in this profession might think that teachers only work 8 till 3:30, but that's not true. I'm like you. I have Gmail on my phone for work, but it's buried in a folder somewhere and I don't have the notifications turned on. If I need it and I'm out somewhere and I have to access something, I can go in there and dig around and find it. But I never know that it's there most of the time, because I try to treat my phone as like my personal device in terms of putting some kind of divide between work and what I use my phone for. So, thinking about ways to limit those distractions so that you do get a chance to turn off and don't drive yourself insane.
It's interesting, too, because we just heard about a professor actually here in Iowa. He's from Denmark, and he had come here for 3 months, and he's already headed back because he just could not understand how people work past 4 o'clock here and how he was getting emails past 4 o'clock. He said he could not. There were some other factors, too, but that was one of the things that he's like, no. He's like, we work from 8 to 4. We do not answer emails. We do not write emails. We don't do any of that past 4 o'clock. And so I think it's also, in society, we always see people on our phone. And I think, and I'm a person that if I'm up at, and I think I was writing emails at 10 o'clock last night, and so I think we just, we need to learn how to self-regulate and figure out what works for us, and knowing that it's not like this everywhere.
So maybe to round up, can you maybe recommend some resources or places that people could go to find out more about this and get some more ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of have a broad spectrum of some books that I've read, and they all can seem a little one-sided, but they're also different ends of the spectrum on this continuum. One of the books is Glow Kids, is screen time with kids. That's the second one I read. Some people it will resonate with some people. It was a tough read to understand, to fully understand what screens are doing in social media and games, but it opened my eyes to a lot of things. The first one I did read is Reset Your Child's Brain. And it was taking a 4-week screen-free detox. And so we did do that as a family last June, and it was very interesting to go through. I would say, once again, on that spectrum, there are definitely chapters and things that I'm like, okay, it was good to understand, but I can't fully say I'm on board with all of that. One a little bit closer to the middle is Raising Humans in a Digital World by Diane Graeber. Very much is just helping kids build a healthy relationship with technology, just acknowledging that it's out there and how do we raise them. And then there's also Common Sense Media has a really great digital wellness curriculum. They just, I know you mentioned this before in the podcast, they just put out their latest 3rd grade through 8th grade curriculum. And so they updated the 3rd grade through 8th grade. And so they have a whole component on digital wellness and self-regulation, and the videos and the activities that go with those I feel like I highly recommend checking those out. Some of our school districts, and I don't know if you guys have had at Grantwood, but they've had screenagers. They've had a screening of screenagers, whereas it's a video that you can show. I've had some districts have shared it with kids during the day, and then had a parent screening at night. Just a little bit of understanding of how of digital media, of social media and screens for kids. And then the last one I'll share is the latest one that actually Jeff Glade shared with me. We're looking more into is the Digital Citizenship Project. It's a little bit more understanding about the reputation you want to build, the more of the social emotional aspects of digital citizenship that some of the other curriculums have missed. So we're looking forward to looking into that one a little bit more.
That's a lot of great resources.
Yeah.
And lots of stuff I hadn't heard of. I mean, a couple of them I have, but for the most part, all new. So thank you so much for sharing those. And thanks for coming and sharing your wealth of knowledge. It was a good conversation for sure.
You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been fun.
All right. So up next, my favorite part of the show is Tech Nuggets. Wiley, I'm going to start because my voice is starting to fade out here. How's that sound?
Go for it.
Okay. So I believe that I've already mentioned this before, but I shared it yesterday at our blended learning cadre, and people were shocked, and someone told me it was going to change their life. So I'm going to share it again.
Oh my gosh.
It's called, I know. It wasn't even on my list. Like, it was just one of those little nuggets, and I'm like, oh, well, what about this? And then the whole room exploded. It's funny how sometimes those things work out, but it's the Talk and Comment Chrome extension. And what the Talk and Comment Chrome extension allows you to do is to, you click on your little Talk and Comment. It'll show up in your Chrome bar where the rest of your Chrome extensions show up. But actually, it also shows up over on the right-hand side of your screen and wherever you are in your browser. And you click on it, and it instantly starts recording your voice. So then after you're done recording your comment, it automatically generates a small, quick link for you, and you can add that anywhere. So you can share it with your students. Where teachers were looking to use it was as audio comments and feedback that they were providing for students on their docs. Also, it's something that students could use. So instead of typing things out, they could use audio comments or this talk and comment to respond with audio links instead. It also works in different things here and there. So Gina had mentioned yesterday it works inside Actively Learn, which is her forte, of course, and she was super excited about that. But it's kind of a Chrome extension to experiment with here and there to see where it works and where it fits in, and sometimes it doesn't too, of course. One thing that I would mention is that refresh is your friend when you use talk and comment. So if you have created a audio comment, what you'll want to do is refresh your browser, because sometimes those links get a little wonky if you haven't refreshed your browser. Sometimes it forgets to forget the link that you have already generated. So that's just a little bit of a pro tip, but apparently life-changing.
Can I add a tip on that too?
Yes.
I did notice that when that's on, it is really hard to scroll through documents that are like over 5 pages. For some reason, we were looking at documents, and all of us who had talk and comment could not scroll, or it took forever for us to scroll. So we actually have to end up turning it on and off depending on when we're ready to. So if it's not a problem for you, then great. If you're realizing that, it's hard for you to scroll, then just delete it. And
I have been noticing it's been hard for me to scroll, and that's why you think that is?
That's
that's interesting.
App this extension is new to me. What is it?
So I haven't mentioned it before?
I don't think so.
Oh, because we talked about it. It was a way of, adding audio into Google Slides. That's how we first started messing with it. Of sorts. It's a way of adding audio into slides.
What does it look like when you share the link with somebody? Like if you shared it with me and I don't have talk and comment installed, what do I get? Do I get a website with a player on it, or do I just get like an audio player with a link to where it was recorded?
No, I don't think you have to have talk and comment to hear the audio. It just gives you a little link.
All right, good one, Mindy Carney. I got 3 here. A couple are maybe on the quicker side, but yeah. Okay. So I've had a lot of people asking me recently about Google Sites, or I've had to do a bit of Google Sites training with people recently on the new Google Sites. And I happened to come across this page from Chris Betcher, who is an Australian educator. And he works for EdTech team in Australia. And he has a Google site put together. And I thought this was interesting. He's got a page full of all the things that you can embed onto a Google site. Well, maybe not all the things, but some good examples of things you might embed quite often. So things like Street View, Google Photos, Tour Creator, Spark Page, Spark Video, Twitter, SoundCloud, Flipgrid, TED Talks, Padlets, Wakelets, all those kinds of things you can put on there. And some of them are interesting because like you think you would just take the embed code and put it in and it works, but it's not always that simple. Like for Google Street View, for instance, you choose the embed option, he says, but don't paste the embed code. Instead, paste it into the by URL section, and you have to take out a little bit of the code at the beginning in order to make that work. So I thought this was an intriguing look at the best way to embed some of those things in Google Sites. So if you've got a teacher website or your kids are doing e-portfolios inside of Google Sites, there's some examples here of what that could look like if you're doing SoundCloud audio or putting a Flipgrid in or something else. So that was just short and quick. Yeah.
So those design thinking cards that we created for one of our TMI episodes, I think you, with the embed codes that you put into Google's sites, even with the Google Slides embed code, you have to have the confidence to go in there and mess with the embed code a little bit.
Yeah.
So just go in there and mess with sizes and mess with different things, because even like with the Google Slides, when you publish it to the web, it allows you to only flash through a slide a second. But with that, I needed it to flash through faster than that. And I could do that with the embed code, but I couldn't do it with the publish to web. So you have to just get in there and start messing around with it, see what happens. All right. So this I saw today on the Twitters. Carmen Sandiego is coming to Google Earth.
Oh, my kids would like that.
Yeah. So I tried to play with it a little bit today, but I couldn't quite figure it out and how it works. So what I could do today when I was reading this blog post, and we'll link that in the show notes, if I clicked on the link in this blog post that takes me actually to what it's called is the
Crown Jewels Caper?
Yes. So I could find it in the Crown Jewels Caper link on just the link on the web. When I downloaded the app, though, the link in here downloaded me to Google Earth, which makes me think I have to find the Pegman of Carmen Sandiego somewhere on Google Earth, but I couldn't find her. So I don't have 100% confidence in giving like detailed directions on how to do this, but I definitely think it's something worth playing with because we've talked about Carmen Sandiego on this show like 3 or 4 times.
We have. This is almost news and follow-up right here.
We have to talk about this. Yeah. Yes. So when I went on the web, though, it's super fun because you can do interviews of people. You can hop on the plane and take you other places. So just some different things to do to actually get into the game of Carmen Sandiego. So I think it's worth taking a look at if you are a Carmen Sandiego lover like you and I are.
It's fun. It says, where on Google Earth is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So play with that one. That one's fun.
My kids enjoyed the Netflix cartoon series. And I heard they're doing a movie as well based on the same characters. Maybe like a live action movie, but they're having the same people that do the voices be the actors.
Nice.
So something to look forward to.
We like it too. My kids are always like, is she good or is she bad? It's always a good moral dilemma. She's stealing stuff, but from bad people, Mom. I know.
Robin Hood.
Yeah, right.
All right, so I'm going to be a little self-indulgent with this one, but I have an AR app, which I think I've done probably for like the last 2 or 3 Tech Nuggets now, but I came across this one here called Portal AR Step into Scotland, which I thought was a fun app based on the idea of portals, which I know you've seen before, Mindy, in different AR apps. So you create this portal and then you walk through it and you are in Scotland. And there's different scenes and different categories. They sort it into like, like business or, eating out or going on an adventure. And it takes you into different things you can do. It's created by the Scottish Tourist Board, basically. But it's very informative. It's got lots of information and facts and 360 videos and images and things on there that you can look at if you want to see what it's like in my homeland. I think it could be useful for social studies or, maybe in ELA you're reading a story about a character who's from Scotland and you're wondering what it's like.
He's in his garage.
He's in his garage, yes.
Garage, there it is, or in his carriage. Garage.
So, Portal AR Step into Scotland, it is free, and I think it made me feel a little bit homesick when I was looking at some of this stuff, because I'm familiar with a lot of this on there, but you can go parasailing over the top of like Edinburgh Castle. You can go on a motorcycle through the Highlands of Scotland. You can go and
Highlander, okay.
Yeah, you can go see
motorcycling, sure, right.
There can be only one, yeah. You can go visit the Kelpies and see some things over there too. The Kelpies are these huge metal statues of horse heads, which sounds like really kind of random, but if you download the app, you'll be able to go and see those sculptures and see what those look like.
Oh, we can see where you came from.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
And the other short one I had was kind of a fun one, I think, because I didn't know this was possible, but whether I'm at home or at work, I do spend a lot of time on Apple devices. I know you do as well, Mindy, although you're maybe thinking of defecting to Samsung. But I came across this article on, I think it was PC World or something weird, that said you can copy and paste things between your Apple devices. And I thought, no, that cannot be right. But you can. You can copy a link on like Safari on your iPhone and paste it into your Mac. You can copy a photo from iOS and paste it into a document on your iPad.
I feel like I've made this happen by accident before.
Yeah.
like something will come up on my screen and it's like pasting from MacBook Pro or something like that, like onto my phone. And I don't know how I do it, and I'm not intentionally doing it, but I knew that this happened, but I don't know how to make it happen.
So all you need is Bluetooth and Wi-Fi turned on, and then Apple devices have got a feature called handoff, which is typically on by default, but I was just kind of blew my mind a little bit that if you copy something, you start browsing for something on your phone and you're like, wait a minute, I need a bigger screen for this, I need to do some more typing or something, and you can just copy the link and then go over to your Mac or whatever, paste the link, and there it is. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes for anyone that wants to see it.
Good one.
All right, we should say thank you again to Marissa. I put on the show notes here, if people want to spend more time on their screens, where can they find you online?
Well, yes, we're all adults. We know how to use our screens effectively usually, but I would say easiest way to contact me is through Twitter at MEDoll. Yeah, just Twitter.
Yes. So I am at Team Corny on Twitter, and Jonathan is at Jonathan Wiley. Our team account is at DLGWAEA, and you can use our hashtag EdTechTakeout to tag the show. If you prefer, you can send us an email to podcast@gwaea.org.
So until next time.
This has been the EdTech Takeout. We hope it hit the spot.
For more information on today's episode, please visit dlgwaea.org/podcast.